Will you dare to explore the powers of your mind? You are a mind with a body. Because you are a mind, you possess mystical powers. Powers known and unknown. Dare to explore the powers of your mind. Why explore them? When you make the discoveries that are awaiting you, they can bring you 1. Physical, mental, and moral health, happiness, and wealth. 2. Success in your chosen field of endeavor. And even 3. A means to affect, use, control, or harmonize with powers known and unknown. And dare to investigate all non-physical forces lying outside the realm of known physical processes. Forces which you can use when you learn how to apply them. And this will not be so difficult for you. No more difficult than turning on a television set for the first time. For a little child can tune into his favorite television program. Now when he does, he neither knows the construction of the broadcasting station or his receiving set, nor the technology involved. But that's all right. For all the child needs to know is how to turn the right knob or push the right button. You will see in this chapter how you can turn the right knob or push the right button to get what you want from the most effective electrical machine ever conceived. Although this particular machine is the sublime handiwork of divine power, you own it. How is it made? Well, among other things, it is comprised of over 80 trillion electrical cells. Naturally, it has many component parts, and each part is in itself an electrical mechanism. And one part is an electrical marvel, yet it weighs only 50 ounces. Its mechanism consists of over 10 billion cells, which generate, receive, record, and transmit energy. What is this wonderful machine that you own? Your body. You are and will be the same you, even though you lose an arm, an eye, or other parts of your body. And the electrical marvel? Your brain and your nervous system. It is the mechanism through which your body is controlled and through which your mind functions. And your mind, it too has parts. One is known as the conscious and the other the subconscious. They synchronize. They work together. Scientists have learned a great deal about the conscious mind. Yet it has been less than 100 years since we began to explore the vast unknown territory of the subconscious, even though primitive man has deliberately used the mystical powers of the subconscious from the beginning of man's history. And even today, the Aborigines of Australia and other primitive peoples do so to a very great extent. Let's start exploring now. Day by day, in every way, I'm getting richer and richer. Let's begin by accompanying Bill McCall of Sydney, Australia, on a journey from failure and defeat to success and achievement. It was at the age of 19 that Bill started a business of his own, hides and skins. He failed. At the age of 21, he ran for federal Congress, and again he failed. Now it seems that instead of crushing him, these and other defeats motivated this young Australian to develop inspirational dissatisfaction. So he began searching for rules of success. You see, Bill McCall wanted to become rich, and he thought he could find rules for acquiring wealth in inspirational books. Therefore, while checking the inspirational book section of the library, Bill became intrigued by the title, Think and Grow Rich. He borrowed the book and began to read. He read it once, and then he read it again. And even though he read it the third time, Bill McCall was unable to understand exactly how he could apply the principles whereby some of the richest men in the world acquired their wealth. He told us, "I was reading Think and Grow Rich for the fourth time while walking leisurely along a business street in Sydney. And then it happened. It happened suddenly. I stopped in front of a meat market window and glanced up. And in that very fraction of a second, I had a flash of inspiration." He smiled as he continued. "I exclaimed aloud, 'That's it! I've got it! I was startled at my emotional outburst. So was a lady who was passing by. She stopped and looked at me in amazement. I hurried home with my new discovery. He continued seriously. You see, I was reading Chapter 4, entitled Autosuggestion. The subheading was The Medium for Influencing the Subconscious Mind. Now I remember that when I was a boy, my father read aloud from Emil Coué's little book, Self-Mastery Through Conscious Autosuggestion. He then looked at Napoleon Hill and said, "It was you who pointed out in your book that if Emil Coué was successful in helping individuals avoid sickness and in bringing the sick back to good health through conscious autosuggestion, autosuggestion could also be used to acquire riches or anything else one might desire." Get rich through autosuggestion. That was my great discovery. It was a new concept to me. McCall then described the principles. It almost seemed as if he had memorized them from the book itself. You know, conscious autosuggestion is the agency of control through which an individual may voluntarily feed his subconscious mind on thoughts of a creative nature, or, by neglect, permit thoughts of a destructive nature to find their way into the rich garden of his mind. When you read aloud twice daily the written statement of your desire for money with emotion and concentrated attention, and you see and feel yourself already in possession of the money, you communicate the object of your desire directly to your subconscious mind. Through repetition of this procedure, you voluntarily create thought habits which are favorable to your efforts to transmute desire into its monetary equivalent. Let me say again, it is most important that when you read aloud the statement of your desire through which you are endeavoring to develop a money consciousness, you read with emotion and strong feeling. Your ability to use the principles of autosuggestion will depend very largely upon your capacity to concentrate upon a given desire until that desire becomes a burning desire. When I arrived home out of breath for running, I immediately sat down at the dining room table and wrote, "My definite major aim is to be a millionaire by 1960. Still looking at Napoleon Hill, he continued, "You mentioned that a person should be specific as to the amount of money he wants and set a date." I did. Now the man to whom we were talking was not the young Bill McCall who failed at the age of 19. He became known as the Honorable William V. McCall, the youngest man ever to become a member of the Australian Parliament, as the former chairman of the board of directors of the Coca-Cola subsidiary in Sydney, and as the director of 22 family-owned corporations. And as to riches, he became a millionaire, and quite as rich as some of the men he had read about in the book from which he got the inspiration to explore the power of his subconscious mind with self-suggestion. Incidentally, he became a millionaire 4 years ahead of schedule. Day by day, in every way, I am getting better and better. You will note we use the word self-suggestion as being synonymous with the term conscious autosuggestion used by Emil Coué. McCall remembered that when he was a boy, his father had benefited from a great discovery found in a book of his day, a discovery that every man, woman, and child can effectively employ when he finds it for himself. Like Bill McCall and his father, you too can properly employ the power of conscious autosuggestion. Now, conscious autosuggestion was revealed to Emil Coué because he dared to explore the powers of his own mind and the minds of others. Before he made his great discovery, he used hypnosis to cure the physical illnesses of his patients. But after making his great discovery, which was in reality based on a simple natural law, he abandoned the use of hypnosis. And how did he find and recognize this natural law? Emil Coué's great discovery was made when he found the answer to some questions he asked himself. They were: Question number 1. Is it the suggestion of the doctor, or is it the suggestion of the mind of the patient that affects a cure? Answer. Coué proved conclusively that it was the mind of the patient that subconsciously or consciously made the suggestion to which his own mind and body reacted. Without either unconscious autosuggestion or conscious autosuggestion, external suggestions are not effective. Question number 2. If the suggestion of the doctor stimulates internal suggestion of the patient, why can't the patient use healthful, positive suggestions on himself? And why can't he refrain from harmful negative suggestions? The answer to his second question came quickly. Anyone, even a child, can be taught to develop a positive mental attitude. The method is to repeat positive affirmations, such as, "Day by day, in every way, through the grace of God, I am getting better and better." Throughout Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, you will see many self-motivators which you can use for your own self-suggestion. And if by now you don't know how to use self-suggestion, you will before you complete this book. When Death's Door is About to Open. There are over 450,000 children born out of wedlock in the United States each year, and over 1.5 million teenagers enter penal institutions for car thefts and other crimes. These personal tragedies could in many instances be avoided if A, the parents learned how to employ suggestion properly, and B, if their sons and daughters were taught how effectively to use spiritual self-suggestion. Through the proper use of suggestion, these young people could be motivated to develop inviolable moral standards through their own conscious autosuggestion, and they would know how to neutralize or repel the undesirable suggestions of their associates in an intelligent manner. Of course, every individual responds to unconscious autosuggestion throughout his life more often than he does to conscious autosuggestion. In such instances, he responds to habit and the inner urge of the subconscious. When a man with PMA is faced with a serious personal problem, self-motivators flash from the subconscious to the conscious to aid him. This is especially true in times of emergency, especially when death's door is about to be opened. Such was the case with Ralph Wepner of Toowoomba, Queensland, Australia, one of our PMA Science of Success course students. It was 1:30 in the morning. In a small hospital bedroom, 2 nursing sisters were keeping vigil beside Ralph's body. At 4:30 the afternoon before, an emergency call had been made to his family to rush to the hospital. When they arrived at his bedside, Ralph was in a state of coma as the result of a severe heart attack. The family was now out in the corridor, each one worrying or praying in his own special way. In the dimly lit bedroom, 2 nursing sisters worked anxiously, one on each wrist, trying to feel a pulse beat. Because Ralph had not come out of the coma during this entire 6-hour period, and the doctor had done all that he felt he could, the doctor had left the room. He had gone to visit one of his other hospital patients, who was also in a critical condition. Ralph couldn't move, talk, or feel anything. Yet he could hear the voices of the sisters. He could think quite clearly during portions of this period. He heard one sister excitedly state, "He's not breathing. Can you pick up a beat?" The answer was, "No." Again and again he heard the question and answer, "Can you now pick up a beat?" "No." "I'm all right," he thought, "but I must tell them. Somehow I must tell them." At the same time, he was amused at the sisters for being fooled like that. He kept thinking, "I'm quite all right. I'm not going to die. But how? How can I tell them?" And then he remembered the self-motivator he had learned. You can do it if you believe you can. He tried to open his eyes, but it seemed the more he tried, the more he failed. His eyelids wouldn't respond to the command of his will. He tried to move his arm, his leg, his head, but he couldn't feel any reaction at all. In fact, he didn't feel a thing. Again and again he tried to open his eyes, until at last he heard the words, "I saw one eyelid flicker. He's still there." I felt no fear, Ralph says, and still thought how amusing it was. Periodically one sister called to me, "Are you there, Mr. Wepner? Are you there?" To which I would try to respond by moving my eyelid to tell them that I was all right. I was still there. This went on for a considerable time, until through constant effort Ralph was at last able to open one, then both eyes. It was then that his doctor returned. With wonderful skill and persistence, the doctor and nurses brought him back to life. Hidden persuaders. But it was the auto-suggestion, "You can do it if you believe you can," that he had memorized from the PMA Science of Success course that helped to rescue him when he was at death's door. Now, the books we read and the thoughts we think affect our subconscious minds. But there are also unseen forces that likewise have powerful effects even though they are subliminal, below the realm of consciousness. These unseen forces can be from known physical causes or from unknown sources. Before discussing the unknown, let's illustrate with an example that is now common knowledge since the publishing of Hidden Persuaders by Vance Packard. The story first appeared in American newspapers and later was picked up in magazines. Let's consider a report that appeared in a leading national magazine on the subject of subliminal advertising. The report tells of an experiment conducted in a New Jersey movie theater, in which advertising messages were flashed on the screen so fast that the viewers were not consciously aware of them. During a period of 6 weeks, more than 40,000 persons unknowingly became subjects of this test while attending the theater. Flashed on the screen by a special process that made them invisible to the naked eye were 2 advertising messages concerning products that were available in the theater lobby. At the end of the 6 weeks, results were tabulated. Sales of one of the products had soared over 50%, while sales of the other product rose almost 20%. The inventor of the process explained that although the messages were invisible, they still had taken effect on many in the audience because of the ability of the subconscious mind to absorb impressions that are too fleeting to be registered consciously. When this story appeared in the press, the public was horrified by this attempt to channel our thinking habits, our purchasing decisions, and our thought processes by the use of subliminal suggestion. People were afraid. They feared brainwashing in its most subtle form. Yet it is amazing to us that someone didn't take the PMA approach. Subliminal suggestion can be employed for desirable objectives too. Everyone knows that power can be used for evil or for good, depending upon how it is directed. Now that the experiment has proved its purpose, it doesn't take much imagination to see what the beneficial results to the viewers would be should the following self-motivators be flashed on a movie screen. God is always a good God. Day by day, in every way, through the grace of God, you are getting better and better. Have the courage to face the truth. What the mind of man can conceive and believe, the mind of man can achieve with PMA. Every adversity has the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit for those who have positive mental attitude. You can do it if you believe you can. This would be a PMA approach provided, of course, the consent of the audience was obtained in advance. Another illustration of a known physical force affecting the subconscious mind can be shown by the effect of radar on navigators. Why did the SS Andrea Doria and the SS Volchum sink? When the Andrea Doria, captained by Pierre Clamay, and the Stockholm, under Captain H.O. Nordenson, collided approximately 50 miles off Nantucket Island, 50 persons died. The Andrea Doria was sighted by the radar operator of the Stockholm when they were 10 miles apart. The Grace Line luxury liner the Santa Rosa, under Captain Frank S. Civic, collided with the tanker Vulcan on March 26, 1959, 22 miles off the New Jersey coast. 4 crewmen were killed. Second mate Walter Wells, the radar operator on the Santa Rosa, claimed he had made 2 plottings of the tanker Vulcan's course. No satisfactory explanation of the true cause of these collisions has resulted from the investigations in either of these instances. Could the waves from the radar instruments have been the real cause? Perhaps Sidney A. Schneider has the answer. As a young teenager, Sidney A. Schneider of Skokie, Illinois, became interested in hypnotism when he observed his older brother, a university student, successfully place his first subject under hypnosis. Sidney became an expert hypnotist. During his business career, he became a radio operator and an engineer in electronics. In the Second World War, Sidney Schneider was a vital part of the system known as IFF, Information, Friend or Foe. His job was to see to it that every ship leaving our country was equipped with radar. He noticed that radar operators sometimes went into a trance. They weren't aware that they had been in a trance when they came out of it. Because of his knowledge of hypnosis and electronics, Schneider concluded that the fixed attention of the naval employees took place when the waves from the radar machine were synchronized with the brain waves of the operator. On this theory, he changed the waves on the radar instrument and eliminated the recurrence of the trances. Sidney Schneider told us that he converted his conclusions regarding the principle that placed the seaman operating radar in a trance into the brainwave synchronizer, a machine which he invented after the war. What is the brainwave synchronizer? It is an electronic instrument designed to induce various levels of hypnosis by subliminal and photic, light, stimulation of the brainwaves. The instrument can be used alone or combined with a tape recording of the therapist's verbal suggestions. No physical connections or attachments are placed on the patient. Results are obtained at any distance in which the light in the machine is visible. The apparatus induces light to deep hypnotic levels in over 90% of the subjects in an average time of 3 minutes. In an experiment with the brainwave synchronizer, none of the persons involved was informed about the machine or what it could do. Neither were they told that they were subjects of an experiment. Yet 30% of them were hypnotized to various degrees, ranging from light to deep states. Why and how does the brainwave synchronizer work, we asked. It is like a television transmitter, Schneider said. The human brain produces pulses, waves, of electricity in several frequency ranges. This knowledge has been applied in the field of medicine since 1929 and the invention of the electroencephalograph, commonly known as the EEG machine, an apparatus for recording brainwaves. My machine operates much like a television system, Schneider continued. The reason the picture on your receiving set does not drift up or down is that the pulses generated within the set synchronize with corresponding pulses generated by the transmitting television station. The receiver is forced to operate at a rate controlled by the transmitter, and the picture must obey. Like the transmitter of a television station, the brainwave synchronizer also produces synchronizing pulses. And through photic stimulation, the waves sent from the synchronizer cause the frequency of the brainwaves also to lock in step. At this point, hypnosis can be achieved. Just compare your brain to a receiving set and the brainwave synchronizer to a television transmitter. And you will see as you continue to listen that in addition to comparing your brain to a receiving set, you can compare it to a television transmitter also. A little knowledge becomes a dangerous thing. We have just explored some of the unseen forces from known physical causes. Now let's proceed further into the realm of the unknown, the thrilling field of psychic phenomena, such as 1. ESP, extrasensory perception, awareness of or response to an external event or influence not apprehended by sensory means. Here are included A. Telepathy, thought transference. B. Clairvoyance, the power of discerning objects not present to the senses. C. Precognition, seeing into the future. D. Postcognition, seeing into the past. 2. Psychokinesis, the effect of the mind on an object. Now let's be realistic and keep our feet firmly on the ground. Let's explore the unknown with common sense. You'll be in danger unless you use good logic and avoid the gathering of cobwebs in your thinking. Facts should be your stepping stones over the river of doubt. Therefore, let an experienced guide direct you along safe paths. And we will introduce you to such a guide. But before we do, let's talk about the past. Thomas J. Hudson's famous book, The Law of Psychic Phenomena, when published in 1893, became a bestseller. The book is published today in paperback by Kessinger Publishing, Whitefish, Montana. It contained many thrilling stories of reported psychic experiences. The imaginations of tens of thousands of people who read this book were stimulated. Some were ready, some were not. From then on, public interest in psychic phenomena made rapid progress. But many persons not properly prepared injured themselves by becoming crackpots. This was due to the awesomeness and magnetic interest a little knowledge of psychic powers generated within them. There is a noticeable tendency of some persons who are not properly educated and mature in their thinking, and not very well adjusted emotionally, to become fascinated with this intriguing study. It is easy to understand why so many religious leaders, scientists, and persons responsible for the welfare of the people found the study of psychic phenomena an anathema. 1. Imaginations ran rampant and threatened the sanity of the people. 2. Fact and fiction seemed to be indistinguishable. 3. Hypnotism by amateurs and vaudeville entertainers, as well as the trickery and frauds practiced by fakirs, mediums, and charlatans, abused the minds of the public. 4. Basic religious principles were twisted in a direction that led to evil. Anything associated with psychic phenomena became repellent. It was taboo. In spite of the dangers, taboos, and social or professional ostracism, there were courageous, honorable men with good common sense who had the courage to explore for the truth. But it remained for the long, courageous fight of Dr. Joseph Banks Rhine, formerly of Duke University, inspired and assisted by his wife, Dr. Louisa E. Rhine, to clothe the study of psychic phenomena with respectability. This is due to the impeccable character of Dr. Rhine and to his 30 years of controlled laboratory experiments based on mathematical laws. His task was a difficult one, because spontaneous psychic phenomena are not apt to occur in a laboratory. Such phenomena occur when least expected, and most often when a person is under the greatest emotional strain or possessed of an intensified obsessional desire, often simultaneously with the death of a loved one. Westinghouse invests in ESP communication. It is apparent that any writer on the subject of psychic phenomena today endeavors to have the protection of a part of the cloak of Dr. Rhine's respectability by referring to Dr. Rhine and Duke University to make his own theories digestible. We are no exception. We urgently suggest that if you are interested further, you read The Reach of the Mind and other books of which Dr. Rhine is the author or co-author. Our recommendation: let Dr. Joseph Banks Rhine be your guide. And how successful has Dr. Rhine's work been in breaking down the resistance to investigation and belief in these strange mind powers? A fair test, it would seem to us, lies in the fact that hard-headed businessmen are convinced and are making experiments of their own. In an interview, Dr. Peter A. Castruccio, director of the Westinghouse Astronautics Institute, confirmed that Westinghouse scientists are engaged in research to find a means of using telepathy and clairvoyance for long-distance communication. Dr. Castruccio, too, had many lengthy visits with Dr. Rhine before a decision was reached to engage in this great experiment. And will the search for ways and means to harness telepathy and clairvoyance and make them commercially feasible be successful? Let us answer this as follows. Not too long ago, people were scoffing at ideas that were unbelievable to them then, but are taken for granted today. A. Matter being turned into energy and energy into matter. B. The breaking of the atom. C. Man-made satellites. D. Jet power, or E. Everyday necessities like television, for example. And what about the electronic computer that was designed from the human computer, the human brain, and the nervous system? Everyone was conceived, believed, and achieved by men with PMA. Machines that operate with the speed of light, 186,300 miles per second. Machines that can calculate 40,000 arithmetical operations per second and detect and correct their own errors. Machines that became a reality because man built into them electrical circuits which in many respects function like the known electrical activity of the nervous system of your own physical body. Our answer: what the mind of man can conceive and believe, the mind of man can achieve with PMA. But no machine or man-made invention is as marvelous as the wonderful human computer you own, your brain and your nervous system, with their power of electrical activity. Man is more than a body with a brain. You are a mind with a body, a mind possessing and also affected by powers known and unknown, a mind composed of two parts, the conscious and the subconscious. Here we have stressed most the concept of the subconscious mind, its powers and the forces known and unknown that affect it. But what about the conscious mind? That is equally important, and you will hear about it in the next chapter entitled, And Something More. Now, if your reaction to what you have heard has not given you an insight on how you can turn the right knob or push the right button to get what you want from the machine you own, dare to explore the powers of your mind. Be guided by pilot number 4, And Something More. Pilot number 4. Thoughts to steer by. 1. You are a mind with a body. Your body is an electrical machine. Your brain is a mechanism that is an electrical marvel. 2. Your mind has two parts, the conscious and the subconscious. They work together. 3. Conscious autosuggestion and self-suggestion are synonymous and are contrasted with the word autosuggestion, an unconscious activity. Autosuggestion automatically sends messages from the subconscious to the conscious mind, as well as to parts of the body. The subconscious mind is the seat of habit, memory, inviolable standards of conduct, etc. 4. Day by day, in every respect, I am getting better and better. Self-affirmations repeated with frequency, rapidity, and emotion affect the subconscious mind and cause it to react. Bill McCall acquired wealth through the use of self-suggestion. 5. Coué's great discovery was, you can use healthful, positive suggestions to help yourself, and you can also refrain from negative, harmful suggestions. 6. Learn to use the proper suggestion in influencing others. Learn to employ the right conscious autosuggestions. When you do, you can have physical, mental, and moral health, happiness, and success. 7. You can do it if you have PMA and believe you can. 8. Hidden persuaders. Take the PMA approach. 9. Your brain sends out energy in the form of brainwaves, and this energy is power which can affect another person or an object. 10. A little knowledge may be a dangerous thing. Dare to explore the powers of your mind. When you enter the dangerous, unexplored territory of psychic phenomena, let Dr. Joseph Banks Rhine be your guide. Day by day, in every way through the grace of God, I am getting better and better